Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have a workshop video for you guys where we do a little experiment to see how we can improve the stock Broadway Limited sound system setup with potentially adding baffles. In other words, seeing how much of an improvement we can get out of the sound quality by adding speaker enclosures to these tenders. So a little background on this project. I've always felt that Broadway Limited sound systems have been kind of lackluster. I feel like, the sounds have always been really like noisy and tinny, and with really low bass and really, really loud high end, top end. So their engines have always sounded really, the sound system itself has always sounded really low quality, despite the actual sound files themselves sounding really pleasant, actually, to my ears. I really like Paragon 2's, sounds. Just felt that the sound quality was really low. And I've always attributed to the low sound quality to, using really old, maybe really cheap boards or really outdated sound driver chips, or simply using, really low resolution sound files. But I was thinking the other day, they always recommend using speaker enclosures when doing DCC installs. And, in other manufacturers' engines, you see speaker enclosures, designed into their engines. But BLI is kind of famous for using this setup, the two rounded speaker setup in their tender with no enclosure, but rather using the tender itself, the tender shell itself as an enclosure. And, I was wondering, what if the poor sound quality isn't from what I've, the recordings or whatnot, but rather it's simply from the fact that they don't use enclosures. So I wanted to see today how much of an improvement we can get with sound quality with the addition of, proper enclosures with their tenders. Now, I am by far no means a audiophile or an audio expert, but to my understanding, a speaker baffle it has to be a very specific size. If your speaker baffle is too large, or if you don't have one, the sounds that come out of a speaker will lose a lot of its bass, a lot of its low end, and the size of the baffle and the shape of it will significantly impact the audio that comes out of said speakers. So especially with BLI's tenders, some of these are absolutely massive, like this thing here. I'm wondering how much sound quality you're losing without a proper baffle here, and how much better sound quality gain we can get with a tighter, smaller baffle that's better suited for the actual size speakers that we're using here. Now that being said, I'm trying to do the experiments to see how much we can get out of the stock setup. I'm trying to avoid buying a brand new decoder and brand new speakers. I'm well aware that there's really nice speakers out there made by Scale Sound Systems and whatnot, that cost like $20 a piece. And the thing is, I have a few dozen. I think I have like a dozen BLI engines, and I'm just trying to avoid spending all that money on my engines. I try to, enjoy this hobby relatively affordably, try to enjoy it for cheap. And so I'd rather take this challenge and see, how much we can get out of the stock setup here with a few really cheap modifications. So without further ado, that is kind of the project. Now, at the end of this video, I'll obviously show how it sounds, the after a baffle, but obviously we need to have a baseline beforehand. So without further ado, let's see how they sound stock. All right, I have the Paragon 2 Santa Fe 484 in the track. This is before adding any modifications. This is completely stock. Let's give her a listen. So 3 engines we're going to upgrade today is 2 Paragon 2 engines. This is a Santa Fe 210-2, Paragon 2. This is a Paragon 2 Santa Fe 484. This is basically how all BLI engines look, more or less. The 2 speaker setup, and then a metal board and a little piece of foam sandwiched in between. So this metal board basically pushes down on the foam, which holds the speakers in place, and then the decoder placed on top. On this engine here, I already removed the metal board because I'm going to put the speaker enclosure, and I'm probably just going to use double-sided tape to mount the decoder on top for this one. And then finally, for the 3rd engine, I have a Paragon 1 Pennsylvania Road M1A here. Now this one I did a pretty jank decoder install like 5 or 7 years ago, or however long it was. It was a long time ago. So it's kind of ugly. But that being said, this has got a TCS decoder, so it does sound a lot better. But that being said, I realized that with the giant tender, it does sound a little different than the other TCS engines I got, and so I'm just kind of curious to see, you know, with a baffle, how much better this engine could sound. So that's why this is here. But basically, each one of these is gonna get an enclosure, and we will see how they sound. All right, so I spent a few minutes on the CAD software, probably half an hour, basically CADing up a speaker baffle that will work for these three engines. You can see that actually conveniently, because these three engines all use the same metal plate, BLI chose to make them basically all the same spacing and size, so the speakers are all spaced evenly the same way apart. They use the same exact speakers, use the same metal plate, and the screw holes are basically mounted in the same locations across all three of these speakers, or all three of these tenders. So conveniently, I could just make one of these, and hopefully they'll fit on all three of these engines. But this is what I came up. Basically, two baffles with a hollow gap in the middle. I'll probably hand drill a hole to let the wires out in the middle, and then the two outer little pegs here basically allow them to be secured to the existing mounts here, which I have the screws, I just haven't put them on. But basically the screws will secure the speaker baffle, which will push down the speakers, holding everything in place. So I will print 3 of these and see how they turn out. All right, I finished printing a few of these speaker baffles. This one, I still have to install in the 210 too, but the 484 turned out really, really well. I just had to solder, I drilled a hole through the middle where the wires come through, and then just basically screwed them in place. They were a perfect fit. This actually took 3 attempts. This was iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. So it took a little bit of time, but I eventually got it right. Then I just double-sided taped the decoder on there, because that's all it really takes. I made sure there's more than enough clearance for the decoder and the roof of the shell, so there's plenty of clearance there. And yeah, the M1A I had to do a bit of modification. I had to, the speakers here are spaced ever so slightly further apart, and and more specifically the shell. Because this was, actually, fun fact, the M1A was BLI's second ever engine made. Their first ever engine they made when they first began as a company was the New York Central J1E, but this was the second engine. And back then, they actually still screwed their tender shells down. You can see the 2 screw holes there, and they would go into here. Later engines, they just completely ignored that. Now modern BLI engines, the tender shells are just press fit, which is... I got whole opinions on that. But anyways, because there's the 2 screw hole things here, I had to, and this, this basically slides directly on top of the speakers. So I had to basically mill out like a little area here. So it's not a perfect fit, but this will snugly fit into the shell itself. I don't know if I can demonstrate it here. But you can see it looks something like that. So basically, I had to trim the sides off so it'll fit within the sandwich between these 2 pieces. But yeah, I think I gotta make one more iteration because I got the screw location slightly off. When you put this on, you can see that the pieces still kind of stick way off the chassis there, because this height is much lower than these. So anyways, I gotta probably make one more iteration of these before it's perfect, but they're all coming along really well. This one is completely done, so let's put this thing on the track and see how it sounds. Okay, that was really interesting. So I don't know how well this came off in the video audio, mostly because I'm using an iPhone to record. And the iPhone, microphone isn't the highest quality and might not pick up the differences, but I feel like I can hear a distinct improvement in the sound. Now, to clarify, I don't think the sound quality necessarily improved by much, if any at all, but I think the overall balance of the sound improved. And what I mean by that is, if you imagine sound on an equalizer, so where you divide it up into various frequencies, I feel like before having the enclosure, I feel like the sound was really unbalanced, and so certain frequencies would like dominate and like reverb really aggressively, and would basically take over and drown out all the other sounds. So for example, like certain parts of the bell ringing or certain parts of the chuff would really ring in your ears and sound like noise, and basically you couldn't hear anything else. With the enclosure, I feel like it's able to kind of balance out that equalizer curve much better, and so it basically brought down those overpowering sounds and actually brought out a little bit more of the bass and the treble, making it so you can actually hear all of these sounds and all of the range, the full range of the speakers. And so yeah, the effect is probably pretty subtle, and again, I'm not at all an audio expert, so I might be just talking out of my butt. But that being said, I feel like it was a good enough improvement that it was worth my time to add these enclosures to my other engines. So actually, I did a few more, as you can see here. Originally, it was this one, and this one, but I did 2 more, added enclosures to all these, and again, from before and after, just doing it by myself, I do feel like I can hear an improvement in the sound, however slight. But that being said, I printed a whole bunch more of these, and I plan to add them to most of my other BLI engines, specifically the ones that have really big tenders, because those are the ones that will get the biggest improvement with an enclosure. So yeah, but you know, the other engines are at home, so I can't do them right now. But anyways, yeah, I think this was a really interesting project. I actually printed a few extra ones of these, and I actually am debating selling these, not for much. I was planning just to ask like $5 per enclosure or something like that. If anyone is interested out there in buying one of these, send me an email. I'll have an email in the description, and maybe we can work something out. But in any case, it's not a significant improvement, but if anyone out there wants to buy one, let me know, I guess. I'm debating selling these more officially or not. We will see. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this video. Hopefully this was an interesting video, interesting premise, interesting experiment. And hopefully some of you guys enjoyed this video and found it informative or entertaining. And yeah, so anyways, please let me know if you have any questions or comments. Please comment down below. I try my best to answer all of them. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Take care.